So I recently had an experience that I would like to share with you. It was something that I'll never forget. If I think back to when I was very, very young, hearing the Beatles for the first time, having the opportunity to be able to, I wouldn't say brush shoulders, but almost within arm's reach, come into close proximity with one of them, that would have blew my mind. So here we go. Here is the story of myself, Crafty, and this guy. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a full-time musician and I'm a really big Beatles fan. Being a Beatles fan for anyone is usually a big thing when you come across people that say that they really like the Beatles. For me, I guess to say that they're, influential and all of that, is quite a cliche, but being a full-time musician, I don't know how much I would owe the Beatles for how much of an effect it's had on me becoming the person that I am that has to deal with music 7 days a week. So anyway, my story is that recently I live in Adelaide, South Australia, and the wonderful man Paul McCartney, out of nowhere, releases concert tickets, which were very, very, very hard to get. So that's a different story, though. What this story is really about is the day before his concert, which I came to realize was his first show on his world tour. So the day before his first show, he and the band had booked out the Adelaide Entertainment Centre to be able to go through a bunch of their songs, a rehearsal for their world tour. That would also be, I'm assuming, the crew, like getting all the lighting things happening, as well as the screens that they ended up having at the gig, which were fantastic, I got to say. But yeah, it's amazing to think that that would have been, I'm just assuming, the logistical reason of why they would have a rehearsal, because wouldn't they just be rehearsed? Well, yeah, if they're on tour, then they'd be rehearsed. They haven't started the tour yet. And rather than booking a rehearsal somewhere, I guess they figured, well, why not? Let's just do it at a venue when we've got all of the screens and all of the lights. They're all set up. So it was maybe a week before the gig that I hear about a competition to be able to win entry, U+1, into the Paul McCartney day before the concert rehearsal.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
I was quite excited by that. I guess, I don't know about you, but for me in my life, I usually think to myself, there's no way I'm going to win that. I could enter, but then that'll take time and that's a bit of a waste of energy. When you're someone like me, I am actually really, really quite busy by nature. So I guess if I'm going to set aside some time, I have to be pretty enthused. So I was, and I decided, yeah, all right, why not? Let's just go into the competition. And that was just in my head. That's as far as I got. Of course, I've got gigs, I've got teaching, I've got lots of things that are happening. There's no way that realistically, that I'm actually going to actually have the time to set aside to do this. But then I happened to just quickly glance on social media that my mate Stefan had put up a post which was his competition entry.
Hi, Paul. My name's Stefan Houck and I'm a musician here in Adelaide. You're basically the main reason I started playing music as a 5-year-old. A question I've always wanted to ask you is, how do you manage to get through a 2-hour show without drinking water on stage? I don't know how you do it. Do you not get parched? I wouldn't be able to do it with my voice anyway. It's pretty remarkable. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you here in Adelaide. Cheers.
So seeing that actually did give me the inspiration that I actually have to do this. So thanks for the inspiration, Stefan. So yeah, the competition was, if you could ask him one question, what would the question be? And tag Paul McCartney in Frontier Touring and put the hashtag Ask Paul AU. So here was my competition entry. Hey, this is Crafty here. I'm trying to win the Paul McCartney competition of being able to go see him at his rehearsal and ask him a question. And my question would be, so Paul, you're someone that's very influential amongst other musicians, and I'm wondering, who is your biggest influence? If you had to pick one, who would be your number one influence? There's many questions I could ask, but I figured that one would be quite fitting. I'd like to ask that. So, yeah, thanks very much to you. You being the one that is putting on this competition. Thanks very much for doing that. And thanks to Paul. And yeah, thanks for watching. So if I think about it, I think my strategy was that, like, okay, what's a question that I could ask that probably Paul wouldn't mind being asked? And that's what I came up with. I guess that he would potentially maybe not be able to limit it to just one, but if he was trying to limit it to just one influence, well, then he might think to himself, like, and might actually be stimulated by that question. Maybe. I don't know. He's been asked a lot of questions in his life. So would he actually be really that interested? I don't know. I basically just forgot about that. As soon as I posted that, I had to head off straight to a gig, and then I got about my business. Now, the next day, it was in the afternoon, I was thinking to myself, you know what? This is probably the time that Frontier Touring are going to have to be letting the winners know if they've won or not. So I thought, I'm going to check my email. And so I checked my email and nothing.
Disappointed!
So I thought, maybe I've missed out then. And because you can actually search hashtags, I searched hashtag AskPaulAU and saw that there wasn't actually that many entries. There was about maybe 50 or maybe under, which I got to say, that kind of surprised me, because I guess I just assumed, like, wow, a living Beatle, you'd probably have thousands upon thousands of people wanting to enter. But I guess, yeah, for whatever the reason, there wasn't actually that many. So then I started to think, oh, well, maybe they haven't sent me my winning notification yet. Oh, but I got to know. So I asked my mate, Stefan, have you received an email? And my other friend, Jacob, had also entered the competition. And so I asked both of them, and they both replied with, no, I haven't heard anything. And so I thought, oh, I guess we all haven't won. I guess they've only picked a few winners. And I had to send out some invoices, and I was mucking around on my computer. And then out of nowhere, bloop, I just see Frontier Touring email in the inbox. And then the first words were, congratulations, you have won. And I, it was a, wow. How do you put that into words? Like, it was a bit of a rush, but it was also one of those, like, hang on, am I actually really seeing this? So I got so genuinely excited, I had to text my mates Stefan and Jacob, and I was like, hey guys, check your email inbox, because I was just convinced, well, if they've sent me some sort of a notification, well, surely then they'll be there as well. And I was excited because I figured that, we'd all be able to get to hang together. And sadly, they didn't receive an email. And I felt like the biggest bastard. Like, oh no, what a way to be the biggest wanker, to like rub your nose into it, without meaning to. So, soz guys. But yeah, look, I got over that with my excitement. I had to choose my plus one. And so my lovely partner, Makala, was available and willing to come along with me. So that was an easy, quick choice. And so it was under 24 hours before we had to get ourselves down there. And so in order to be able to make it there in person, like I said, busy guy, I had to ring and text and let people know that I couldn't make it for my usual Tuesday music teaching. And I guess it's a nice thing to think about it. Every single person was actually extremely fine, like, wow, you get to go along to Paul McCartney's rehearsal. That's cool. So I've got my day organized. Frontier Touring had said in the email that you'll need to check your phones in there, and you'll need to have ID. And if you have any bags, they'll need to be checked in as well. So I could tell, it's like, okay, so this is a pretty full-on kind of operation, understandably so. And so I get a call from a private number when I'm on my way there. Luckily, I was traveling there early. They said, we're actually trying to get people there a little bit earlier. Is that okay? Can you get there a half an hour earlier than what was scheduled? So, quick, let's rush down there. And so Michaela had bought me a toasted sandwich I hadn't eaten yet, and also a coffee. And so as soon as I met up with her, I'm chowing down this toasted sandwich as fast as I possibly could, and then sculling the coffee as fast as I possibly could. It was not pretty. And so then we get out the car park to go to the meeting place out the front of the Adelaide Entertainment Centre. And it was one of those like, I've got crumbs of toasted sandwich coming out my mouth and bits of coffee coming through my nose as I'm trying to get there on time. And so we sprint there, and then we get there and we notice that there's a group of people all milling around. And I could notice a few of the faces from the hashtags, the Ask Paul AU competition winners. So, I see. So there's some other competition winners here, and they weren't puffing. I'm very glad that I completely scoffed down this sandwich and coffee. But hey, better that we didn't miss out, I guess. So finally, after a wait, which, by the way, this wait did have a bunch of media hanging around as well. And so we had some radio people and some news people come up and do a quick chat. Eventually, we got given a bit of a roll call of the names. And so by the time that we got in, it was more waiting. That was waiting outside the entertainment centre. We had to go into 2 different spots where we got checked off like a metal detector, and then another spot where we had to check in our phones and bags and everything. And actually there was another spot where the lovely people from the Frontier Touring organisation had given me my question that I had said as a part of my competition. They actually printed out that question for me, and they said, here is your question, just in case you get stage fright, which I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I also thought, oh, well, if I decided that I wanted to ask him something else, maybe better not do that. So there was lots and lots and lots of waiting. You know that feeling when you're standing in line and the parts of the body, the blood is draining. It's just going down. You're not doing anything, but you're just standing there, and standing there is just making you feel ever so tired. And there's no chairs around. You have to stand waiting in this lineup. And so I feel like that in hindsight, I feel like that we were there waiting for a good couple of hours. Now, after a good hour, hour and a half, you can hear off in the distance, there's music that sounds like it's Paul McCartney live. So he was actually already doing some rehearsing off in the distance, maybe getting an earlier sound check happening. I'm assuming they were getting prepared for us, which was the competition winners, but it was also the media as well. And I was chatting with the Frontier Touring people that said this particular type of competition, I believe, is pretty rare. So that was a nice feeling, just knowing that, you know, you're one of the absolute lucky chosen few. Now, so when do we get to the bit where we actually see Paul McCartney in rehearsal? Finally, they told us, okay, so we're going downstairs into the entertainment centre. Here we go. So all of the media people get told that they can go first. And so, you know, the cameramen are trying to, you know, juggle, do I take both cameras or do I just leave the one? Because they weren't allowed to carry all of their stuff down. They could only take just the bare essentials. So they're sorting all of that out while we're there waiting, going, all right, we've been waiting a while. Let's go. I want to see Paul. And finally, we get taken down the stairs, and then we go into the big room, and nobody's there except a few sound people, some lighting people, and nobody on the stage. I guess Paul and the band had said, all right, let's take 5, and then, you know, we'll come back while everybody's seated. And so we got put into a seating position. We were in about the third row from the front, And the Adelaide Entertainment Centre, if you're not aware, seats about 8,000 seats, I assume, something like that. So in a way, it's kind of like a small gig for Paul, really. But there was probably, say, 15, 20 competition winners and their plus ones and a few media people. There wouldn't have been more than 40 or 50 people, I don't think, in the whole entire place. And we were just there sitting very close to the front. The stage looks amazing. All of the lights are lit up. It's very fancy. It's not the 60s anymore. It looks great. So we get ushered to our seat. I didn't actually realize I'm just kind of like following the next person along. And so I sit down and then I kind of realize I'm like, wait a minute. Paul's main two foldbacks would be here and I'm sitting dead center in front. I'm in the second row of the competition winners. So there's a lovely girl that had really cool curly afro sort of hair that was sitting in front of me, but directly above was in between, perfectly in between Paul's two foldback speakers. So I had a pretty damn good seat, one of the best in the house, really. And finally, after more waiting, a lovely chap comes out who says a few words and then says, without any further ado, I'd like to welcome the great man himself, Sir Paul McCartney, to the stage. Please give him a big warm welcome. And we all go, ah! And it must have been such a small noise for Paul compared to what he's used to, because there wasn't many of us in this whole entire place. And it was so surreal. Out he comes, one step after the other. Paul McCartney, this guy. He was wearing jeans and a hoodie and just looked nice and relaxed. And they both have microphones and they're chatting to each other for a couple of minutes. And then the chap that's talking to him says, now, Paul, I've got some competition winners here. They each have a question to ask. Is that all right that they ask you a question each? And he says, oh, yeah, fine. So it was a lucky lady, asked a question, and then there was a few others. And I'm sitting there thinking, holy crap, I'm actually going to ask a question to a living Beatle. And I will say that I got a little bit nervous. Thankfully, I've been really nervous in my life, and I wasn't that nervous. There's something about Paul McCartney, the way that he's just a lad. He's one of the fellas. He's very endearing. He's very engaging. He's very friendly. And so he helps make you feel at ease. And yeah, eventually the guy says, okay, so coming up next, Paul, we've got a guy with a question and his name's Crafty. And then there's silence. And I'm looking around for, where's the microphone? Because there's a microphone being passed around for all of us. So I'm looking that way, and then I hear, Crafty, it's behind you. So I'm turning around. As I'm turning around to grab the mic, I'm not looking at the stage, and I hear, hello, Crafty, in this great Liverpool accent that I can't do. And I just thought, well, wow. It kind of threw me, actually. I grabbed the mic and I turned around and I was like, okay, hi, Paul. I proceeded to ask my question after thanking him coming to Adelaide. Interestingly enough, the Beatles do have a bit of a history with being in Adelaide, because they were here in 1964 in June, I believe it was, with Jimmy Nicol. Ringo was still away suffering and recovering from tonsillitis, or getting his tonsils out or something like that. And so they had Jimmy Nicol filling in on drums. And apparently it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, turnouts to actually just see the Beatles. And so they're waving. There's classic footage of the Beatles waving to, I think it was many, many, many thousands of people that had just flocked to see the Beatles, just so that they could wave, which was one of the questions from one of the other people. But my question was, as you heard before, and I kind of fumbled my way through it, but I said it. And then, like I thought he would potentially do, he couldn't limit his influence to one musician or one person. He mentioned a few. First, he mentioned Elvis, and he said that him and his mates would go see the Elvis movie at the time, whichever the new movie was, back in Liverpool in a cinema. And so he found that him and I'm assuming it was either other members of the Beatles or other people that were his mates that played music as well. What they were usually doing was looking at the guitar to see, if it was sounding like it should be a D chord, or then were his fingers actually showing the position of a D chord, or was he just miming? And after that, he mentioned Little Richard, understandably so. He's got a big energy and his high screams. But being that he played piano, he then mentioned Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly played guitar and sang, and that was a big influence for them being guitarists. Obviously, Paul plays piano as well, and John did as well. I think they all kind of did. And the other really great thing about Buddy Holly that he mentioned is that he was a songwriter. He wrote all of his songs, and it was such a big influence because if you think about it, the artists around the time weren't really writing their songs. So, yeah, Buddy Holly was a big influence. And so there was a wonderful collection of questions from the other competition winners, one of which there was this lovely young girl who had brought along her dad, and her dad had a birthday that particular day. So that was all really nice. Eventually, the media asked a few questions, and then it gets to the point where it's like, okay, so that's all of the questions. Do we say see you later? Paul asks everybody, well, we're going to play a few numbers. Would you like to hear? And everyone's, woo! Then he introduces the band. They appear one by one and get a great welcome. And the drummer's going, and then Paul gets his Hofner bass, which, by the way, was one of the questions. He says he loves his Rickenbacker bass still, and he still has it, but he only uses the Hofner on tour just because it's a lot lighter and it's a groovy little instrument to play. So he's got his Hofner and he's sort of diddling away a little bit. And then out of nowhere, all in sync, unbeknownst to us that what the drummer was doing was actually giving a count in, they all in sync at the same time go, can't buy me love. And all of the lights go boom and all of the screens start doing all of this cool stuff. And I looked to Michaela and we were both like, ah. It was like we're on a roller coaster ride. So that was fantastic. Then some Wing songs occur. We're all standing up and it was just such a rush of energy. It was being given a full snippet of the Paul McCartney big, concert experience with just a small little group of people. It was absolutely amazing. So after a few Wing songs, they do Drive My Car. And then Paul actually said, he's like, at one point, he's like, I don't know, we're just making it up as we go along. So he does actually ask, does anybody out there have a birthday today by any chance? Which of course he knew because he remembered from before that the daughter had mentioned her dad. And then he says, oh, funny that. Well, this song's for you, Dad. And then they go, 2, 3, say it's your birthday. Which, God, just hearing that live is great. Imagine that. Imagine it's your actual birthday and that Paul McCartney dedicates it to you. Fantastic. All right. So we eventually, after that song, have to say goodbye. And so we're just waving and it's a little bit awkward because there's not a lot of background noise. It's kind of quiet. We're just sort of walking out. Okay, bye. And then someone, yells out, I love you, Paul, or whatever it is. And then Paul, was in conversation with someone and then, of course, goes, oh, I love you too, man. And because he's just such a legend. So we get upstairs and then I do my best to leave without having to talk to any media. One thing before we leave, we get given from the lovely, wonderful hosts of Frontier Touring, they gave us like a little show bag. It's like, you didn't need to do that. Like we got a chance to go and I got a chance to ask Paul McCartney a question and just to be there and listen was fantastic. Now, what do you do then? You have to just remember Paul's just a guy. We're all human beings. Obviously, he's had an extremely magical life in comparison to all of us normal people. But yeah, just, feeling all of the gratitude of that, like, okay, well, I get to go and go about my business of leading my life as a full-time musician again, which is already great. I didn't feel like that I came down off of this huge high into this bad yuck come down. Thankfully, I just appreciated the lovely feeling of being given the golden ticket, basically, led into the wonderful secret society for a very small amount of time, and then, graciously go about my business, I guess, as best as I can. But it wasn't over, because the next day was the actual concert. And so my wonderful partner, Mikala, did have the wonderful good fortune of scoring 4 tickets. So one for me, one for her, but also one for my mum and dad, which we gave to them as a birthday present. And so it was a wonderful time. And so, like I mentioned, the song Drive My Car was not one of the songs that they ended up playing on the night. So that was great that we got some more songs. There was a Wings song coming up that they played at the rehearsal that they didn't play at the big concert as well. It was just fantastic. And so, being able to actually get some merch the next day was well worth it. So there's my story. What I'm going to do is, on my Crafty Music Tips channel, I'm going to talk about, as a musician, what are the things that I got out of it. So if you're somebody that feels like that you can learn something like what I did, feel free to go along and check out that video. But I wanted to do this video on here for a while, have been very busy. And the reason why I'm doing it is not because I want to be the bragger that is saying, look what I was able to, be encountered with. Not you. I can't stand those people. So like, a few of my friends have been asking, like, well, what was the question that you asked, and what did Paul say? I just wanted to put it all here, so if anybody was interested, you could actually just listen. And also, for those that didn't get a chance to go along and experience that, for me, I love hearing stories. For me as a fan, it's almost like you can live vicariously through the person telling the story. So I really genuinely hope that you get a little bit of a buzz out of, being able to hear this story. So I will see you in the Crafty Music Tips channel video. That's it from me. Although I should say thank you very much to Frontier Touring, who, without them, I wouldn't have this story. And of course, Paul. Cheers.